You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. Hi, Adam.
Oh man, I'm feeling evil today, Zach. I want to do some evil stuff.
It's bad. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, Adam. Be good. Good is nice and better. And just a minute. Mind wipe. Now you can't be evil now.
Oh,
Mind wipe.
geez.
Evil out.
What was I just thinking about? What are we even doing? We're podcasting.
We're doing our
Great.
podcast. We're doing our podcast. And what you need to think about is times that Charles Francis Xavier has gone evil and or been corrupted.
You know, we say times, quote unquote, but like, isn't Xavier always evil? You know,
So here's the thing. And this is my POV, my approach to this.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like in the past, Xavier wasn't evil. He was written as a Silver Age character, which meant he was kind of dumb and inconsiderate and evil in the same way Superman was evil to people.
Okay, sure, fair.
And then other writers, starting pretty much with Onslaught, and I'm blaming Mark Waid for this one because he's the one who was like, hey, look, he likes Jean as she was a teenager and he was her teacher. I was like, yeah, but like no one ever cared about that moment after that. So shut up, Mark.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Went down the path of look how evil Xavier is. And yes, I know that there was a couple of things with like the Micronauts thing and all that, but those comics are bad. And again, no one cares about them. But most of the time is like, he wasn't like evil.
No,
and then
they
went real hard in the other direction and made him like Machiavellian, which was a weird choice because Grant Morrison had already done that with the Chief from Doom Patrol back in like the late 80s. So that was a weird, like, actually, our wheelchair bound leader is evil. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here, guys? But more or less, I think it's actually pretty good that the X-Men's leader is like a morally complex person in a different way than Magneto, because that's interesting.
Yes, it should make for better stories. All I was saying is that when your baseline is you're starting your own, child army and your
paramilitary group of children
in your house,
yeah.
It's not a good place to start morally, Anyway,
he doesn't have the high ground in a lot of these arguments.
No. So this is our theme this week, Evil Xavier. Zach, who do we have to thank from our lovely patrons?
We got David Koritsky to thank for that. If you want to be like David, you can go over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Reach deep down into your hearts, pocketbooks, other adjacent things, and toss a couple of coins into our coffers. And then we'll do a whole episode based around something that you want us to talk about. And here's the thing. We're going to put our own twist on it, baby. We're going to make a bespoke X-Men experience unlike anything you can get for $5. That's cheaper than I don't read solicits, so I don't know, but that's cheaper than any of the upcoming relaunch X-Men books. I'm going to say the $5 that you spend on here will be cheaper.
We will find out very soon.
More fun. At least take longer to listen to our podcast than to read a 20-page comic.
Oh, sure. Yes. And the stories that we are going to do today are, all over the place in terms of time periods for Xavier. But we're going to start with one that I was confused about the time period that it was published in because it is called Original Sin.
Adam, if I had a nickel for every time Mike Deodato Jr. drew a Marvel comic called Original Sin, I'd have 2 nickels.
You sure would. That's right, because this is not the Jason Aaron Original Sin, which happens years after this one. This
Also
is
drawn by Mike Deodato.
yeah. This is done by, we've got Mike Carey writing this, right?
Got Mike Carey. We got Daniel Way.
Mm-hmm.
We got Scott Eaton and Mike Deodato doing the art on it. This is a crossover between Wolverine Origins and X-Men Legacy.
And a standalone called X-Men Original Sin #1.
Yes. So Adam, you have not read all of X-Men Origin, right?
I have not, but
or not X-Men, Wolverine Origins.
Wolverine Origins, no, but obviously we've read a little bit for the show, so I'm aware of some of the Romulus beats that are leading into this.
There's so much. Wolverine Origins is so long. This book went on. It's a 50-issue run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this starts off and Daken has lost his memory. He doesn't know who he is. And Wolverine is going to try to help him. And to do so, he does have to enlist the help of someone he thought was dead and is not. Another recurring theme of this episode, and that is Charles Xavier.
Listen, again, the other thing that you can do with the mentor figure to a bunch of young adults is not have the mentor figure around. That's like writing 101. Is anyone surprised that the elderly wizard dies in all of the things?
Thou shalt not pass, Zach.
Fly, you fools. I was trying to think of something else. And here's the thing. I was like Ben Kenobi, who doesn't say anything when he dies. I mean, he says, if you strike me down, but that's before he looks at Luke and gives him a knowing look and then is chopped down into nothingness. And I don't know what Dumbledore said.
Let's not worry about that.
I don't care.
No.
I don't know if it's come up on this show. I was a Harry Potter hater since day one. And that was largely because I grew up in a very conservative fundamentalist household. But that's not the point.
Now you've learned to hate J.K. Rowling.
Hate it for new and different reasons.
The good reasons.
Also the quality. But that's not the point. Harry Potter, I watched it as an adult in between the times of J.K. Rowling went off a deep end and I was getting over growing up the way I grew up. And I was like, this isn't very good. I can see why people like it, but there didn't need to be 8 movies of this.
Oh, well, you know how these movie franchises go. I would argue that this particular story didn't need to be 5 issues long, or that it needed to co-star Miss Sinister.
Okay, so Mike Carey, and I say this with love. Mike Carey had a weird moment where he was trying to make Miss Sinister a thing. So she's sexy Mr. Sinister.
Mm-hmm.
Sexy lady Mr. Sinister. There's nothing else to her. She's just sexy lady Mr. Sinister. To be fair, Mr. Sinister at this point is still a nothing character. He's a weird vampire man.
Yeah, we haven't gotten quite to Gillen's version yet. Correct?
Correct. So it's weird. So this starts off in X-Men Origins with a flashback to the Hulk stuff and what we get told, like the Hulk stuff, like Wolverine's first appearance.
Yes.
What we're told is actually Logan was a secret triple agent working for Romulus, and he was initially sent to the X-Men by Romulus to kill Charles Xavier.
When Charles Xavier, it turns out, actually already knows that this is happening. So he is aware of the fact that somebody, somehow, he doesn't know it's Romulus, has sent this character to kill him. And he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invite him into my home. I'm going to let him take a swipe at me, but then I am going to hack his mind because, as the famous panel from this this storyline goes, he needs a weapon. That's what he tells Wolverine.
I can't emphasize enough that if this is supposed to be like this deep, dark twist, this is like 90% the first arc of Ultimate X-Men. Like that's what Wolverine was doing.
Yeah, it's kind of Deadly Genesis-y. It's very Ultimate X-Men, and it's also not like as shocking as I think they want it to be. Like,
It's really not.
they've always implied, or at least Wolverine has always suspected for many, many years. This was a going concern in the late 80s into the 90s, right? We just did that Hazard arc of
Yeah.
X-Men Volume 2, where Wolverine is like, hey, you're always meddling with my mind and that kind of stuff. And like, okay, well, here it is. He meddled. He meddled with your mind so that you would, be his like,
Not be evil.
right. Yeah.
And he did remove Romulus's conditioning, so it was like, actually, wait, maybe I'm just back to default Wolverine, who doesn't want to do a lot of murders, but it's not very made clear. And I get what Mike Carey's trying to do. He's trying to add pathos to Wolverine.
Sure.
And to Xavier and make Xavier a complex character. He's just trying to rebuild the character after Deadly Genesis and the stuff that Whedon did with the character and all of that. Like,
yeah,
he's trying to do that.
And on the other side, you have Daken, who, as an amnesiac, Miss Sinister is trying to break into his mind so that they can use Daken as a weapon, her and Shaw. But Romulus has set a trap inside of Daken's mind that Miss Sinister can't get by. So they're going to lure Xavier in so that he hacks Daken's mind and that then Miss Sinister can get in there. And it's like, this is way too complicated, guys.
And at the same time, help Sebastian Shaw overthrow the Hellfire Club, sort of. That plot doesn't get very well developed at all. And I've got to say, Adam, were you sitting here looking at that Hellfire Club being like, should I know these people?
No clue who the heck was in charge of the Hellfire Club post Sunspot.
It would have still been Sunspot, I think, at this time.
They say that he's stepped down or that he's left, so they've taken over, but they don't want Shaw to take back over.
They don't, and it doesn't matter because
no, it doesn't.
That Castamere, Lenonine, and Tithe all die.
Yeah, one of the guys is just like a guy that just turns into a lion. Yeah,
big kitty cat man, very funny looking.
They get defeated very easily.
Daken's sucks, right? Like, here's the thing. I know people are like, oh, he's great. And at one point, there were people who were mad at me for saying he sucks, but he was bad until like 2020. just like not fun to read in an annoying try-hard character. And I was okay that he was drowned in a shallow puddle by his dad. Happy late Father's Day to those who celebrate.
Well, he's certainly not enjoyable here. He sits around for most of this 5 issues while Miss Sinister parades around him in a bikini. It's very weird. They make out a couple times. And it turns out that all Daken really wants is to connect with his dead mother, Itsu. And Wolverine is able to, via Xavier, at least show Daken the memories so that he knows that Wolverine didn't kill Itsu, that the Winter Soldier did, and that it really all was Romulus's fault. But this doesn't restart Daken in any meaningful way moving forward. So I'm not really sure why they spent all this time telling this story.
Again, there's 50 issues of Wolverine Origins. There's a lot of questions I want to ask Daniel Way, and maybe one of them is, why did you take 50 issues to tell this story? It's not very good, Daniel, and you wasted a lot of Steve Dillon's career.
I think it's worth noting, Deodato is doing some of his Deodato things here.
I don't mind Mike Deodato as much as other people do. I understand the criticisms, but he's got a vibe to it. And like, sometimes I can like, okay, I'm grooving with what you're playing here.
I will say most of it looks pretty good. There were a couple things that threw me. One is that he's clearly using T2 star Robert Patrick as his face model for Xavier, which I thought was interesting. The other is that he doesn't seem to know what pecs should look like on the Incredible Hulk, and really does give him some enormous breasts, which
Really
is
does.
interesting. It's an interesting
Right.
look for the Hulk.
We stan. It is a weird pick with Deodato going over to Scott Eaton.
Yeah.
Like Scott Eaton is a lot closer to like a late 90s, early 2000s Brian Hitch style. It doesn't vibe with like the heavy inks of Deodato and the shadowing and all that. It makes for a weird read. And this becomes so weird because it's kind of a nothing story. Like, I don't feel like if you wanted to share some original cinema, I don't feel like Wolverine or Daken or Professor Xavier are significantly changed. We learn more about them, anything from this story.
No, because we're not surprised by what Xavier did in the flashback, because we kind of assumed that happened anyway. And then you're right. At the end, Wolverine and Daken walk off together, but no, nobody's learned anything.
That doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't.
I think he's working for Romulus secretly again soon. Great. He wants him to unwork for Romulus. That doesn't happen. This isn't a good comic.
No, it was fine. But now that we've started putting adjectives to it, we should probably rank it on our big old list.
That's the thing about this podcast, and I love it, is that we do have a big old list. And that list is ranking every X-Men story of all time that we've read, frankly.
It's a lot.
We're not doing ones we haven't read. I mean, we will. We just have to read them first. And we're ranking them from best to worst. We have 921 stories on our road to 1,000. We're on that 1K road, baby. The best story being the House of X Powers of 10. Number 300th being the first arc of the X-Force Road Trip era. Number 600 being, it just says X-Men Volume. So I have no idea what number 600 is supposed to be. I think I gotta look.
That's not good. Didn't you edit this recently?
I did edit it recently. It just says X-Men Volume. So I'm going to check online real quick. I'm going to check online on what it's supposed to be. Please hold. It's supposed to be X-Men Volume 4, 23 to 26, The Burning World.
Oh.
If you gave me 10 guesses, I would have never gotten there.
No. Never.
Number 900 is the Bird Brain Saga from New Mutants, and the worst X-Men story of all time is 2099, The World of Tomorrow. It's very bad. It is.
Down at 779 is Wolverine Origins 37 to 40, which is the Romulus arc, when we reveal Romulus. I think this is probably a little better.
It's a little better than that one.
But not by much.
We also have the one where he fights Omega Red and kills Omega Red. I think the Omega Red one might be better than this.
Okay, where's that? Where's the other Wolverine Origins?
We don't have that on the list. That is this Romulus one.
Oh, that's this one. Okay. So you think this is
everything about Romulus is so like, it's just like,
I know.
We don't need more of a Romulus. Let's put this. Is this better or worse than X-Men Green? How about we say that? To get our minds off of this. Is it better or worse than X-Men Green?
Parts of the Deodato stuff I think is better than X-Men Green. But not by
Let's
much.
say yes. Is it better or worse than Kings of Pain at 772?
I hate Kings of Pain, but you like it.
You do hate Kings. I don't like it. What do I like about Kings of Pain? I kind of like the covers. I like that one of the backups says Artie and Leech having fun. I do like that Peter David Mystique story. Like, that is a good one. Wait, no, is that in this? Is that in Kings of Pain?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it is.
It is not better than Wolverine Goes to Hell. From
the comic where Wolverine Goes to Hell?
No, that was better.
From the event Wolverine Goes to Hell?
Yes.
Yeah, that one is better. Is this better than X-Men Blue Secret Empire?
Yeah, it's better than that.
Is it better than the first appearance of Mimic?
Yeah, it's probably better than that.
It is not better than the Gladiators arc of New Mutants.
No, because as much as that Karma representation is bad, it's still Sienkiewicz.
That's bad. It is the most delicately drawn, insane stuff you could ever see. Like, it shouldn't exist, but it is still Bill Sienkiewicz drawing it. So it's like the good and the bad. What do we got next, Adam?
Oh boy, Zach, this next one's a real doozy. We got 6 whole issues of Uncanny and X-Men Volume 2 coming to us from Alan Davis in the fine year of 1999.
Alan Davis never even checked in. He was so checked out, he was never even checked in. He didn't want to do it. He didn't mean to do it. He was supposed to help out for a little bit because they wanted to bring Chris Claremont back, but there was some weird contract stuff, and he had already started on Fantastic Four, and they were like, we gotta spin the wheels until we can get Chris on this. Alan, can you write these books for 2 years?
This sure is spinning the wheels, buddy. It really is. And, you know, God bless Alan Davis. Alan Davis is a singular talent. Really is an amazing, amazing talent in the history of comics.
We all love Alan Davis.
It is amazing to me that he's drawing a lot of the X-Men Volume 2 stuff, you know, while we have Adam Kubert over on Uncanny. So before I start getting into this, we're specifically talking about Uncanny 372 to 375 and X-Men Volume 2, 92 to 95. So the fact that he's
the Shattering, baby,
writing both and drawing one of these books is pretty dang prolific, you know.
And
so
to be fair, he does have folks helping him with dialogue and like doing the actual scripting at the end. Terry Kavanagh and Jay Ferber also help out on this one.
Yes. Is it
as do Scott Rainey helping out on some of the issues that Kubert just can't get around to.
Oh, Tom Rainey. Yes, Tom Rainey does one of the issues that has lots of Skrulls in it. Because Alan Davis
has a lot of Skrull content all across his X-Men. It's the weirdest thing.
You know what?
I think about Cadre K once a year.
I suspect, and tell me if you think I'm in the right lane here, that we all know that Alan Davis just likes to draw weird teams of weirdos, right?
Yeah, he loves weird little freaks.
And
the Manites, he was all over the Manites.
The Manites here, who are just these little weird goofballs, right? But he needs more. And so I feel like that's where the Skrulls are coming in, is he just wants to draw weird aliens, and that's why they're in this story, because, you know, we're talking about Xavier being evil, and the X-Men team has recently reformed, right? So we have our former Excalibur folks, Kitty, Kurt, Colossus. We're back in town, and we're teaming up with the rest of the X-Men, you know, including the newbies, like Marrow. And
just Marrow. It's just Marrow at this point.
Marrow.
Literally, it's just Marrow now. Everyone else left after Siegel and Kelly.
It's just, that's insane to me. So anyway, it's the X-Men with Marrow. But Professor X is back, and he's being just like the biggest dingus and jerk to every single person.
He wakes them all up at like 5 a.m. and says, "We're doing a Danger Room training session now. Danger doesn't wait for anyone." And all of them are like, "Chuck, we're grown adults."
Yes. Gambit was sleeping in.
Gambit not tolerate. Gambit didn't come to no school.
No.
Gambit X-Men ain't never been no school.
And, you know, Xavier is pushing them harder than they've ever been pushed because they need to be prepared for whatever threats are out there, that they don't work on a 9-to-5 schedule. They could come at any time. And I'm going to fast forward through a whole bunch of other nonsense.
A lot of nonsense.
Why is Xavier being mean to them for 6 issues?
So Xavier's being so mean that the team breaks up. Like the X-Men are like, we're all taking we're taking 2 weeks off.
Yes.
We're not doing this for a little bit. Scott and Jean go off and do Astonishing X-Men Volume 2 for some reason.
Yep.
We get some intermittent stories in like 2-issue arcs for a couple of the characters in between all of this stuff that, I mean, we can talk about, but there's nothing much to talk about in them. They're just very boring. Except for I kind of like how in between Miro gets, like, Alan Davis is at least doing something with Miro. I don't know if I love it, but he is trying.
I do want to get into that, but you got to tell people the punchline here.
Oh, so Xavier knows that there is some sort of spy scroll with the X-Men, and he is deciding to be mean to everybody and cause them to have a breakdown until he can figure out who is the bad person.
Who's
and
the Skrull?
Storm's in on it.
Yes.
Storm's in on it from day one because Professor Xavier says Storm couldn't be evil. It's not her. Skrulls ain't screwing with Storm. That's for sure.
And
they get one up on her.
It turns out to be Wolverine. It
was Wolverine. It was Wolverine the whole time. He's been a Skrull for like the last 8 issues. Mm-hmm. And then you also find out that at the end of this, that he's also the Horseman of Death. Because all of this is slowly Alan Davis building up all of the characters that will be important in the 12. He was reminding you of what's going on in the 12, including the multiple characters who have been shunted off to a different universe. And I feel like someone could have told Alan Davis before he was coming up with his concept for the 12, been like, Alan, so Mikhail Rasputin's just like, he's in a different universe right now. Havoc's in a different universe right now. Bishop, he's in a different universe right now. You're going to have to do so much work. And you want to use the living monolith too, Alan? You're going to have to do so much work to make this happen. So he spends all of this time reminding you of all these characters.
Yeah, well, we are
getting
flashes to Bishop and Lady Deathbird out in space. So that's part of it. So that Lady Deathbird can ditch Bishop and Bishop can go off into another miniseries.
That miniseries, have you read that miniseries?
Which one is it? Is it it's not
It's
XSC.
the one where he goes and no, it's where he does like a future society thing.
The Last X-Men? Is that what it is?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think I've read that.
It's fine. It's better than it should be.
Yeah. There's not that many good Bishop solos, unfortunately. So we're getting that. We're getting the Mikhail Rasputin stuff that you were just talking about, which takes another 2 issues because Colossus and Marrow are hanging out. There's this bit with the Manites, who are these like little creatures, and it's just
that gets resolved in a different book.
Yes, because these books are kind of bouncing back and forth without announcing that they are. It's just expected that you're reading both monthly. So sometimes, like you mentioned the Marrow thing, there's this whole thing about Marrow wanting to kind of be visually passing, right? Because even though
she doesn't want to be a weird bone monster all the time, which is like
understandable,
reasonable,
right? But we've already come from the like original Gen X version of Marrow to like Pretty Princess Marrow that we've got now.
That's just because Alan Davis was trying her.
Yeah. But you know, we actually get this sequence 3 times in these 6 issues, is this idea of Marrow trying to suck in the bones off of her face. And 2 of those scenes are almost identical because they're her standing in front of a mirror trying to do it. And I'm like, if you're expecting us to read both books, Alan, maybe don't do the same scene multiple times in both. It's a little bit much.
It's a bit much. You do get on the other side of that in Adjectiveless X-Men, you do get a nice story with Rogue and Nightcrawler and Shadowcat just going and hanging out. And then Rogue has to save Mystique, and then they think about Destiny and how Rogue grew up and Nightcrawler's there, and it's like, we're not acknowledging it, but we're kind of acknowledging it. Like, there's a lot to that, and I think I can see what he was going for. Unfortunately, like the rest of the Alan Davis run, it's not good.
No, and I don't know. I mean, even 93 is like this weird side story with Mystique and Sabretooth.
Yeah.
And then Rogue bumps into Sunfire, and it's just like there's just too much going on in these issues. Like you could have wrapped up this Skrull storyline in about one issue. You know, you did not need to stretch this out over a huge span of time, like several months going back and forth through these books to figure this out. But
You
I
don't,
don't
but
know.
it is pretty funny that for a while it's like Professor Xavier is just being real mean to them. He's talking about demerits again. He's
Yeah.
just being mean, and he said it's all a trick. Anyway, one of the people he's trying to trick is Nate Gray, who's kind of like, why am I here? Again, what am I
when
doing?
X-Man shows up, he's just like, y'all, I told you this guy sucks. I told you many times. Why isn't anybody listening to me?
This is one of 2 times he is ever on panel called X-Man. Like,
oh, interesting.
Ever. One time is in Onslaught, or around Onslaught, and it was not even in an X-Men book, I don't think. So they're like, okay, whatever. And then this time he's like, yeah, and I'm X-Man. I was like, you don't call yourself that name.
No, nobody does.
That's a bad code name for you.
Oh.
This is about the time where he started wearing Scott's old X Factor costume and floating around and stuff.
Sure.
Again, the comic's not... X-Man's a terrible comic. He is in this as well.
Very briefly. So I'm going to say, on the whole, despite how much content is here, this is a big old mess. And I don't think it's very good.
Listen, this is 10 issues of... Or not 10 issues. This is 6 and some change issues of setup for the 12. If that tells you how good it is.
Well, and now this begs the question. So down at 869, Zach, nice, is Apocalypse the 12. I think this is... It's got a couple of redeeming pieces to it. I don't know if it's as bad as the 12.
It is equally... It is equivalent to the 12. It is Alan Davis's whole run. It's kind of like one chunk of thing. It is him getting some paychecks, and love that for him.
God bless you, Alan.
Is this worse than Typhoid Fever?
That's a great question. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I got Typhoid Fever's from Marvel Comics Presents, right?
No. Wait, is Typhoid Fever from Marvel Comics Presents? Or is Typhoid Fever?
It can't be. This has got to be the annuals, right? I'm
checking it. How do we go
or X-Men Red?
How do we go most of this show
without being confused by ourselves?
And then twice in the same episode. But yes, this is yes, it's from that one.
I'm going to say that this is better than Typhoid Fever.
Hey, you know, on the episode that we ranked Typhoid Fever, we ranked 4 comics.
Oh.
Instead of 3. I think it's because we double ranked a comic once and we had to catch up.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's all right.
This is the deep lore of the podcast that if you're listening straight, you would hear in episode 212. But I have forgotten about.
I'm going to say this is not as good as Fabian Nicieza's X-Men Forever at 858, which is also
I'm going to say
a mess, but is really trying to do something. I don't know what Alan Davis is trying to do here.
Is this worse than the time that Roy the Boy did Aussie era X-Men in what is one of the most bizarre things to happen in comics?
This is better than that. I mean, it at least has some like Adam Kubert and
it's
Alan
got
Davis
good art.
art.
This has good art. In fact, the Kubert stuff I was kind of looking at, I was like, okay, this cooks. This is you're doing a good job here. Let's put it above Prelude to Perdition and below X-Men Forever. That's the right spot. So 859.
859. The Shattering, which is more of a smattering, I would say.
And you thought that comic broke up the X-Men.
Oh boy, we're going to get into it now because, folks, the third story on our list is the last X-Men story. That's right. Zach, what is this?
It is X-Men 65 and 66. it is the end of the slave of the star spawn. Man, it's weird. Like some people, and I saw it today, like, man, it's unfortunate that Silver Age X-Men was canceled right as it was hitting its stride. Because that Neil Adams stuff was great. And Neil Adams is on one of these issues. It's him and Denny O'Neil. Mm-hmm. I forgot that Denny O'Neil literally did anything with X-Men. But I mean, I'm guessing Roy just couldn't script it that month. And he was like, Denny, can you do this one? Can you get Neil some pages?
Well, Neil Adams is only there for one issue because
one of the two issues, because we have the follow-up story to this is by Roy Thomas and Sal Buscema.
Right.
Which is the end of... Yeah, go.
Yeah. So we should talk about X-Men 65. Both of these issues are kind of a hoot in their own way, because the X-Men 65 starts with Havoc and Polaris at the mansion. The O5 are returning back to the mansion after going on some adventures and are being told that there is a massive alien invasion. The Xenox are coming with their whole planet to invade Earth. And, well, it turns out that there's someone who's been preparing for this moment for quite some time. Who is it, Zach?
It's Charles Xavier. He's not dead. You thought the grotesque, the Unhuman killed him? Nope. He killed Kevin Sidney, a.k.a. the Changeling, who we've definitely seen before and definitely didn't get introduced to have cancer, pretend to be Charles Xavier for a few issues, and then die.
No.
And then somehow, people like him, and it's like, we should have him be in other things now. And I don't think that they intended for Morph from X-Men the Animated Series to be this guy. It just kind of happened later in life with all of this. But then now he's like, mainstream people who watch X-Men stuff are like, yeah, that weird little freak that they've got.
Well, we are revealed. All of this is revealed, including that Jean Grey knew and is just very relieved that she doesn't have to keep this secret from
Finally, I don't have to keep a secret anymore. Professor gave me his powers when he died, but it's like, wait, what? Jean, that does not make any sense, does it? No. So she's been passed on mutant abilities, which I guess is something that can happen. And most of the team, I guess Polaris hangs back for some reason, because I guess 2 girls is too many for a fun mission. No, because Polaris and here's the thing that people also forget. Polaris and Polaris and Havoc were not really on the team during any of this. They were there. Havoc was stuck in his clothes because it helped him channel his powers, and Polaris was like kind of hanging around. But they aren't like the new members of the team since they're introduced. Like, that's not what happens.
Yeah,
that gets retconned into everyone's memory because they're like, oh, they're from the Silver Age too, and no one wants to read these comics.
No,
honestly.
I mean, in fact, when the team shows back up at the mansion, they're like, "What are you doing here? Can you get off our property?
This is our house."
Yeah,
brother mine.
Hey, bro,
this is my place.
Gets a step in. So they also just happen to have, because Xavier's been living in the basement this whole time.
He's been living in the basement. We all
love that.
The same basement where they try and figure out where Onslaught is later. The Xenox chamber, whatever. And he's like, I have been lying to all of you. We have to teach these people, because all the Xenox know is war and pain and hate and suffering. So what Xavier does, and this is something that is dumb, but I do kind of love.
This is kind of proto-Claremontian, if you think about it, right? Like what he eventually does in this issue. It's wild.
Charles Xavier reaches into literally everyone on Earth's mind, gets any of their goodness, and like he does take over every mind on Earth, mind you. Like very explicitly, they have no control over this. Takes all of their goodness and has the X-Men build a mutant circuit to shoot all of the like Care Bear heart power at the Xenox to send them to be like, actually, we should think about our conquering ways and maybe not do them anymore.
Well, they are in such agony at all of this like pure-hearted, bravery and courage and whatever they're feeling that they are just like, we're gone. We're going to turn this ship around.
Unfortunately, that does send Professor X into another coma. He just got done being dead.
Yes, and now he's comatose.
Hey, can we talk 1 second? What the heck is up with the Changeling and his weird hat?
His weird hat?
Oh, wait, no. He doesn't get the weird hat on this one.
I don't remember him wearing a hat in this issue.
He gets a weird hat in something else. He gets a weird hat when they put him in like freaking the Marvel Handbook or something. They give him a weird hat. Do you not know about his weird hat?
I don't know. Hold on.
See, his weird hat was in the Ultimate Guide to X-Men, so I assumed that the Changeling was a bigger deal than he is. Yeah, his weird hat.
No wonder. Okay.
His weird Factor 3 hat.
I wasn't so concerned about his headgear. But it is funny that you say Care Bear.
It's from back when sorry, I should take it back. Kevin Sidney did exist in the Factor 3 stories. I did forget about that.
Okay.
He looks like a friggin' weirdo in Factor 3, but
he's the Changeling.
Let's just keep moving.
He can changeling into whatever he wants, including Professor X. The Neil Adams issue is gorgeous. The artwork is fantastic, even when he has to draw a really stupid monster in the Xenox spaceship. But when Professor X is summoning all of this energy from Earth's peoples, and Neil Adams is depicting folks from around the world, it's pretty well done. Unfortunately, then we go to what really feels like a Silver Age story. I mean, that felt like a Silver Age story, but
it did not. But that had Neil Adams art, so it does have like rest in peace, Morning Till I Join Ya. In the Hollow Earth, Neil Adams, you would have loved the Legendary Monsterverse. Neil Adams would have loved it. It's just like Neil Adams was like a pretty normal and chill dude, and also he was like, yeah, but the Earth, it is hollow. Which seems like it might be one of the more okay conspiracy theories.
As long as it's not hurting anybody and he's not blaming any group of people for it.
It doesn't seem like he is. No. I don't know how Neil Adams really felt about the Hollow Earth theory, besides pro.
He wasn't digging a hole in his basement, like trying to get in there.
I don't think. I think Neil Adams knew that whatever was sealed within the Hollow Earth needed to say sealed in the Hollow Earth.
That probably is for the best, because God knows what's down there.
Godzilla and King Kong and whatever happened in that other movie that hasn't hit streaming yet, so I haven't watched it. Though I do hear that Godzilla does a nap in the Coliseum. Oh,
nice. So instead of Neil Adams on the last issue, we get Roy Thomas back in the writer's chair and Sal Buscema doing the artwork. Professor X in his coma. Jean reaches into his mind, and the only thing Professor X can say is the Hulk, because apparently Professor X has conspired with Bruce Banner to devise a machine that could pull him out of this coma, even though he didn't know he would be in a coma. Sure. So they have to go fight the Hulk, even though the Hulk doesn't want to help them, but the Hulk accidentally takes them to Bruce Banner's laboratory so that they can get the gizmo to wake Professor X up. They wake Professor X up and the book ends.
The book just ends and it says, more adventures later, maybe. Who knows? Hulk does nothing in this. It's weird. The book gets put into reprints immediately. And it's better off for it. It's better that they took like 5 years and like, let's not do X-Men.
Yeah, let's.
Hey, I'm sorry. I was looking up the Xenox real quick to try and think. I was like, who else? When else has the Xenox shown up? Adam, are you aware that they showed up in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2?
No. What happened there?
I don't know. I mean, like, legitimately, I haven't read it. I don't know. I just clicked on the Marvel Wiki page. However, George Stacy, you know Gwen Stacy, right?
Yes.
She had a father, George Stacy.
Okay.
Did you know he had a brother?
Who was Xenox?
I don't believe so, but I know he's a supporting character in this comic. Do you know what his brother's name is?
His name is Arthur.
Yeah. Did you know that before this?
I learned this many years ago when people okay.
Did people think you were a real, like,
People
Gwen
thought
Stacy's uncle Stan? Let's talk Gwen Stacy's uncle Arthur.
People thought that I took the name from the character. I didn't realize that was a comic character when I used it in something I wrote and then used it as my screen name. And then after I made the screen name, about a year later, somebody was like, "Oh, you mean like Gwen Stacy's uncle?" And I was like, "Who the heck is that?"
Did you say, no, I'm not a weird person who remembers Gwen Stacy's uncle's name?
But if anybody wants to think that it's because of that, that's fine.
I did for a hot second. This comic,
what does that have to do with the Xenox?
They're in this comic. Again, I didn't read that comic. I don't know. I saw it, and then I saw, oh, that's a great John Romita Jr. cover on it. Honestly,
the Xenox seem like primed for Al Ewing to play around with them. Like, that just seems like something, a missed opportunity, for his space.
Al Ewing did not use them in Sword.
Yeah.
Let's see. No one. The Xenox have just not been used. Is the thing.
Okay? That's fine.
Fine.
It's great that we sent them away.
They learned their lesson, I assume. Again, the Arthur Stacy issue of Spider-Man. Notwithstanding, I have not and will not read that, so it doesn't matter.
I'm not worrying about it. So we've got one issue here that
he's got a great goatee. Have you seen Arthur Stacy's goatee?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got an Errol Flynn kind of thing looking.
He really does.
It looks
Continue.
Great. Oh, I was just gonna say, 65 looks great. It's fun to read. Professor X is absolutely off the chain, insane, having like turned himself into a death faking basement monster. The last issue is very dumb, and it's probably, like you said, for the best that the book took a break before we got back into it with Giant Size. So
listen, it's not like Neil Adams was going to be doing it forever anyway.
No. So this is not terrible, but not good either.
It is on the upper end of Silver Age X-Men comics, which is such a low bar.
Yeah, but I'm going to say, of the three things we read this week, I enjoyed this one the most, just because it was such goofy, silly fun. Like, and Neil Adams is just killing it on those page layouts. He's really doing a great job. So I actually didn't hate this. I don't think it's nearly as bad as the other two stories we read, but it's not good either.
It is better than the unpublished inventory issue that could have been for X-Men or X-Factor called Family Ties. It is better than that. That's at 679.
Yeah, I think we're probably in the 600s here, I'm looking around for...
Is this better or worse than X-Corp?
Oh, boy. Wow. That's tough.
That's 645. I mean, like...
I think this is better.
I think this is better than X-Corp.
Is it better than your beloved X-Men The End, Book 3, Men and X-Men?
No, Adam, it's not.
Okay.
I had to think for a second. And the answer truly is no, it's not. That's the good one. They do a Kabbalah and become like all things to all people.
That is true. Is it better than Curse of the Mutants? X-Men Volume
Also, that book has hot Cassandra Nova in it. We don't talk about sexy Cassandra Nova enough. Chris Claremont's sexy Cassandra Nova that's in X-Men.
Maybe that's the one in the Deadpool movie. I guess we'll find out.
I won't watch. I thought about it last night. I did. I was like, should I go to the movies to watch that? I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I would have to. That's a Saturday night thing. That's so much work. I'm not doing that.
No judgment.
Do I need to see Azazel and Pyro on the big screen again? No. I don't. Unless they give Pyro that face tattoo with the skull.
Well,
I may be in. That
at least
may
what they showed him in the trailer, he did not have the face tattoo. So
Then what are they even doing? What's the point?
I don't know. Random
You either
cameos.
give him the face tattoo and make him this weirdo, or have him kiss a guy. And he could do that.
Sure.
But
yeah. Lots of good stuff can happen here.
him and Shawn Ashmore, they had chemistry in X2 X-Men United. We all know it.
That is true. Better or worse than Curse of the Mutants? 643?
Friend of the show and friend of ours, Nola Fau, has been posting the I Just Want You to Follow Your Heart panel a lot recently.
It's a good one.
Which makes it better than this story. Yeah, Curse of the Mutants is better. But let's put it above Life of X from Astonishing X-Men. It's about there. Yeah. It's about there. Also a comic with Mike Diodato art.
That is true. So this is going to be our new 644 X-Men Volume 1, 65 and 66. So for those keeping score, Professor Xavier, I guess, meddled with Wolverine's mind, was a jerk to the X-Men because he thought one of them was a Skrull, and he turns out he was right. And he also faked his death and then went into a coma. So,
he shouldn't have gone immediately into a coma. Like, that's just bad writing.
Normal Xavier stuff. It's just what he does. It's just his whole thing.
It's just, now he is, I don't know what his current status quo is, because he was the evil stepfather of all of mutant kind, and now he's, I don't know, whatever's going on with him.
He's a prisoner.
I haven't read. Is he? Okay, that's fine.
Zach, that's read. You read X-Men.
I did read 35. That one. I read X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 7.
There were not one, but two epilogues about Xavier being a prisoner.
Yeah, but one of them, he was a prisoner and it was cool, and someone wore a good shirt that said Krakoa is for lovers, and then, or was for lovers, excuse me. Rest in peace, mourn you till I join you. And then another one, he faked his own death again.
I don't know.
And I don't know what's happening there. And I'll catch up on those when those hit the app and someone gives us $5 to talk about them.
Well, who do we have to thank again for Xavier being evil this week?
We got David Kritsky. Thank you so much, David. We want to be like David. Do the thing I said at the start. Because next week, buddy, we got some fun stuff. But before we talk about that, is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you want people to know about?
Yeah.
Tell people more about your fan account for Gwen Stacy's uncle.
So last week we had Jordan on. We were talking about the end of Krakoa, and Comics XF has similarly had some content on recently. Really great editorial by Jude. And Austin just put out a really cool thing that's a lot of contributors from the site talking about some different moments during Krakoa that meant a lot to them. But the one that I put a lot of heart and soul into, I wrote a piece called Remembering Krakoa, and it would mean a lot to me if people went and read that. So that should be out by the time this episode comes out.
I should read that.
Folks, you can always follow me on social, Adam Reck on Blue Sky and Instagram, and Arthur Stacy on Twitter. And Zach, you were about to tell us a little bit about what's happening next week. What's going on our next episode?
We're talking about Canada Day.
We are celebrating Canada Day. That's right.
That's it. We're doing a Canada Day episode about Canada, you know. But until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survive the experience.